I was basically offered the job and then it was lower than what I wanted. So I told them, no, sorry, I'd like to negotiate that further. I would like so and so amount. And I was met with, according to our policies, you have to start at the lower part of the band, at the first step of the band. And we cannot start you higher than that. Now, when someone hits you with a policy, like, how do you even say it? So, I mean, to me, also, that sounded like an excuse because there's no way that so many people in your organization and institution have all started at the lower part of the band. But with that knowledge, I was able to say that. But if you don't know that, that's obviously like, oh, she just threw a policy at me. How can I possibly break it? So basically, I said, I respect that this is your policy. However, I'm sure that you have some exceptions and some leeways and flexibility with said policy. And I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that I meet the minimum requirements and actually exceed them in all fronts of this application.
From PHI Media, I'm Gordon Thane, and this is episode 223, Getting More Money with Salary Negotiations.
You're listening to the Public Health Insight Podcast, your go-to space for all things public health and global health, from the Sustainable Development Goals to the social determinants of health, as well as interesting dialogues about the diverse career opportunities that exist in these fields. Remember to subscribe to the podcast and leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts and Spotify so other people like you can benefit from our content.
For as long as human beings have been making transactions of some sort, there have been negotiations. Salary negotiations, particularly, is a process whereby a party, in this case a potential employee, tries to earn more or get better compensation from an entity that is contracting to do the work. This is totally a normal part of the hiring process, but it doesn't mean that it comes naturally to everyone. It's something that you have to work towards, and we're here to help, because what you'll hear in this episode is mine and Purva's tips and advice to negotiate for more money under intense pressure. We cover everything from what to put down as your salary expectation to the key points to include in your negotiation speech or email. Before you start, put in the right amount of background work so that you can land at an informed position.
You can have very fun conversations about money, or the conversations can be very difficult. So in order to have difficult conversations, you have to prepare for those.
So wise.
Looking for jobs is not all fun and games. There's peaks and valleys. If you're successful, you'll get a job offer, and then you'll have to negotiate or navigate that job offer. Sometimes before you even get to the interview stage, you might get a call about what your salary expectations are. So,
Really?
Oh yeah. So essentially, what we're trying to put into perspective today is how to negotiate a salary. But before even doing that, how do you determine what your salary expectations are? So this is important before you even apply to jobs, right? Because if you have a salary expectation that is beyond what an entry-level job would pay you, then you therefore shouldn't be applying for entry-level jobs as well, right? So knowing what you want to get paid also helps you rule out certain job titles, because there's certain job titles, no matter what organization, no matter where it is, you'll kind of have a good idea of the salary range and you know if that's something you fit in or not. So let's talk about how do we baseline our salary expectations, Purva? What are some different factors that you look at?
If it's my first time applying for a job, I just graduated, I obviously am looking at entry-level jobs. And in that case, I think it's hard to make your case to ask for a crazy amount. Gordon, you have that one story of you hiring for an entry-level job. And did someone ask for like $100K when the salary band was not that?
Yeah, it wasn't entry. It was sort of mid, but the person was looking for like director money.
Yeah, so I think you have to do some self-reflection in terms of figuring out what your own salary expectations are. You have to look at the job posting. If they should have a salary band written on there. And then think about, okay, what are you trying to get out of this? Like, do you have the minimum experience for the job? Can you argue to be more than the initial hiring part of the band, like at the low part of the band, can you argue to get more than that? I think the step one of a negotiating a salary is how much can you negotiate and have it be well within, like, at least doable. You can't go crazy with the ask, otherwise it kind of can come across negatively. But yes, I kind of go into how much am I willing to risk being told no and being like, oh, we'll just offer to someone else who can get it or paid within this. Like, do I have a job that I can fall back on if I don't get this job? If I like, how badly do I want to leave the job that I have currently? Like, is it a toxic environment and I'm willing to get the same amount of money or a very less increase in pay just so I can have a healthier work environment? Is it maybe this other new job is remote and I don't want to do an in-person job anymore? Am I willing to forego a couple grand in order to make sure I have those needs met? And so I think you have to do some self-reflection on what is it that you're willing to give and take from this new job versus the job you have currently, or if you don't have a job, what are you expecting out of your first job? But I will always say to always negotiate. Don't just take what they give you. Try and negotiate at least. Sometimes it'll turn out for the better. Like, I've had times where I highballed like what I wanted, and against the odds of what they had told me, I barely even had to negotiate. They came to me with a number and I said, no, can I get this instead? I mean, we can go into detail of how that worked out, but and I didn't get any pushback. I was expecting them to kind of meet in the middle.
It's because your rebuttal was
This
solid.
is true. And that's what I mean. Like, it has to be supported. You can't just say, I want more money because I want more money. You have to have reasons. You have to say that, oh.
Or it can't be, oh, maybe if I could just have a little bit more.
Yeah,
please.
yeah, exactly. Be like, oh, please, can I have some pennies, please?
I don't want to be a bother, but can you, like, increase it
You
a
have
bit?
to.
Don't be nice. Be professional.
Yeah, exactly. You have to be professional. You have to have it backed up with reasoning as to why they need to pay you more. So you have to have all those things thought out, because they could come with this question at any time, honestly.
You have to be prepared. Do a lot of research. Like, I would say it's 50-50 on whether a job posting even puts a salary range there. So, like, you have to do a lot of research to know what that position pays and in that organization, in that particular industry, and have an idea of the range if you're going to pinpoint what you're expecting.
Okay, wait a minute. What if the jobs we're being offered is for a short-term position? Let's say only a few months. Should our approach then to negotiation be different from what we would normally do for a longer-term permanent position? And should we even bother applying for positions that don't have the salary on the job posting?
Give some more insight into whether you think you can negotiate more with a short-term contract, or can you negotiate more with a more permanent role? Or does it not really matter?
I would say you treat it the same regardless, but I think you just have to understand the limitations of a contract job, especially a contract job that's tied to, like, grant funding, for example. Obviously, a lot of these details you're not going to be privy to when you're applying. So it's on the employer to set those parameters. So I would say this too, like I think I mentioned off the top, Purva, sometimes I've gotten a phone screening conversation before even being offered an interview where they ask me how much I want.
That's wild.
And then from there, they decide to interview you or not, which I don't think is necessarily a bad. I just wish that you had it on the posting so we didn't have to go through all of this. But if I don't want to waste my time, if you're way under what I would be expecting. So I kind of appreciate that, given that you don't have it on the posting, I appreciate that phone screening so we both don't waste our time with what I might be expecting.
Do you think it's a red flag when they don't have the pay on the posting though? Nowadays I feel
No, it's so prevalent. I mean, Canada, I think for public sector jobs, I think are changing the laws such that they now have to be included in many postings, which I think is good. It's just a good practice. It's not a red flag yet because it's such a status quo thing not to have it that I don't think it's a red flag thing. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. But I think more transparency on salary is important upfront, I think, because there's less applications for me to screen through, right, as the hiring manager, and people who don't feel like they wasted their time applying when it's out of range. To me, it's a win-win for everybody. Have a range, like you can have strict parameters as the employer about who's going to make what, so you haven't completely given up your leverage, but I think it just needs to be there, my opinion.
In some cases, the job posting will not have the salary range, and it can be near impossible through research to pinpoint with any certainty how much you can expect to earn in that particular position. Surely then, it's acceptable to just come out and ask the recruiter or hiring manager, how much does this job pay? Is that okay?
The other thing too is, I know you mentioned in the other episode, Purva, about sometimes you felt like it was okay to ask what the job would pay, but your position has since changed where you wait for them to bring it up. How does that work?
I feel, initially, maybe it's because I have only applied to jobs that have the pay range in the posting. I think most of the jobs that I apply to have that, and oftentimes when they don't have it, I'll at least know what a coordinator is usually paid. So I have a experience of knowing the general idea of what that band will look like. And so when I ask the question, I feel that I put the power in their hands to kind of say this is what we were willing to give you. And then you are the one that has to then be no, but I actually would prefer this. You don't have the power to say no, in my perception, because you're the one posing the question. Whereas when I wait until they bring it up, both times that I have had to or the few times that I've had to kind of do this, when I wait for them to bring it up, it's usually at the time that they're giving their offer for me to the job. And so I have a bit of power knowing that I was their top candidate and that they liked me a lot. But also, I am now the one that says, no, actually, I want so-and-so. So I feel like there's less of a back and forth. I have that ability to kind of rebuttal rather than defend is, I think, what the perception is.
But Purva, I've been out of school for about a year. This is my first job offer. I really want to accept it and keep it moving. Can I not just accept the first offer that I get? Why not just, yes, thanks, please, and we'll keep it moving?
How you respond to a job offer sets a tone for the negotiations that will follow. When requesting a salary adjustment, it's important to put on a brave face and keep a cool head. This means resisting the impulse to immediately say yes to the first job offer you receive. It's often easier to negotiate a higher salary going from one job to the next compared to when you're already in the position and want a raise. So don't squander this opportunity to ensure that you secure a salary that reflects your value.
Yeah, I think so. The first job I got after graduating, I had to indicate what I wanted to get paid in the actual application. And the hiring manager was obviously saw that and went with that as my expected ask.
Okay.
And so when it came to being offered the job, she was, kind of hey, so we can't meet this exact thing that you've already requested, but I have talked to HR and would you be willing to accept so-and-so amount? And it wasn't the lowest, it wasn't the low or beginning start of the band because one, I think my hiring manager was just really understanding where I was coming from. But if you have someone who's not, that's the time where you applied for so many reasons. You have the experience for this job. You have the education for this job. Maybe you have the passion and drive for this job and this organization's mission and vision. And I think those are all valid reasons to kind of use as negotiation, especially if they're more certification, education, skill set based. You can say that I meet all of your requirements, or I meet 85% of your requirements. As such, I, am requesting to get paid so and so amount. And in my opinion, highball it a little bit. go a little bit extra than what you may actually want to be paid, so that when it comes down to them negotiating, you meet in the middle and then you end up where you actually want to be. So even if you're new to the job market, and it's so scary, I understand. It's so scary to negotiate your job when you're just like, I've never had a job before. Why would I? I think you have to. It's the same idea. Cosplay somebody who's confident, knows that they're perfect for this job, and highlight that, you know, you meet all the requirements, you're going to be a great asset to the team, and you would like to get paid so and so amount. You have to just stay confident and strong with it. And if it doesn't work out and they meet you halfway, at least you still got more than what they were going to offer you, because they will always try and lowball you in order to save money.
Right. So here's my advice on this.
Gordon's like, all wrong, actually. You don't do any of that.
No. That was pretty good, but I'll say this. I will never say to someone, never ever accept a first offer, because I don't know the situation that the person's in.
Right.
Okay. But what I will say to that is, think about exactly why you would be so willing to accept that first offer. So yes, financial situation, you want to kind of get it over with, sure. But don't do it out of avoiding a tough conversation. If you want to avoid the conversation around salary because it makes you uncomfortable, that's not a good place to start.
Yeah.
In this world, in your personal life, at the workplace, you'll have many tough conversations, and let this be the first one that you try to work your way through, right? If you handle the conversation respectfully and fairly, you would have done your job. And I would say there's almost a 0% risk to compromise your position if you do so respectfully and reasonably. And if your offer is withdrawn for some other reason, I would say the employer could even be dishonest with you as to the reason why that's being pulled. And it may not have anything to do with what you're asking for. So I will actually say it's very unlikely to compromise your position. If you somehow stumbled in a job where you're severely underqualified for, and it's very clear, then fair, if you want to accept the first offer, and it wasn't a competitive pool, you've been courting that job for a while and you got it, fair enough. Those are the only situations that I would say it's okay to not negotiate after the first offer. I would even go a step further and say, if you put a number down, this is going to be controversial. If you put a specific figure down, not a range, because there's two ways you can do it. You could put a range down, or you can put an actual specific number down. If they give you your number on the first offer, right? What do? Do you negotiate that? They're going to say, hey, we offered you what you said you wanted, and now you're saying you want something different, right? So you'll have to think about how you want to navigate that.
Yeah.
Right? So the first offer is contextual on many things, but what we're really getting at is when the first offer comes back lower than what you were expecting or hoping for. So I just wanted to make that clear.
That's a fair point. Yeah, I think if you gotta ask for what you want. So if you lowball yourself at the beginning and they give you that, I think you lose a lot of the power to even negotiate, to be fully honest. Like I don't know how you would negotiate differently.
Right. So I would say, so in those situations, Purva, there's times where there's not a salary, but I've done research and I'm very confident that I've identified the band. In those cases, I will put a specific number. I don't put a range. I'll put a specific number. And I think we talked about this recently about and I'm giving you my minimum number. So when you put the number, that's the minimum number that you're willing to accept and you're happy with it. So not sort of a compromise number. Like if they're crazy, they'll offer you a number, but you don't put that number, but you put the number where it's like, I'll be very happy with this number. Okay. If you have no idea what the range is, you want to put a range for your salary expectation. Like in the initial application, like you mentioned, Purva, when it asks what you want to make, you put a range because you want to give a range so that you have an out. So you don't end up lowballing yourself because you put one number. You could say, no, I gave a range, I wasn't sure what your range was, so this was my range. I'm expecting closer to the higher end of the range I gave you. So you get an out of the, oh, well, you said you wanted this, and now you're making a big deal about it, right?
Yeah.
So that's the way to sort of navigate that first kind of song and dance. But that initial communication, so you, hey, on the phone, hey, we have an offer for you, right? It's this. Let me know what you think. Never, even if you're going to accept the first offer, so pay attention. Even if it's what you put that you wanted, never say yes on the phone or on the spot. Say thank you for the offer. I'm going to take 24 hours to consider it and get back to you if that's okay. Even if it's a mind-blowing offer, you do the same thing,
Yeah.
right? Even if it's what you want, you do the same thing.
Oh, that would be so
And then you take
hard
24
for
hours
me
to consider it.
Like, I know one time I was offered the salary on the phone. I wasn't expecting it. I was expecting an email. I had an email drafted, you guys. I was offered on the phone. I had no idea. But again, it was lower than what I wanted. So and it was a very easy answer to be like, nope, sorry, I would like to negotiate that further. I'm happy to chat about it. But if they gave me what I asked for right off the bat or even more, I think, oh, I don't know. My first instinct would be like, yeah, heck yeah, give me that job. But that's hard. You really have to go into those calls prepared to say that you would like to think
Right.
about it.
Facing tough questions in the heat of negotiation can unsettle even the most seasoned public health professional. But remember, cool heads who do their preparation in advance have a better chance of prevailing.
So speaking of going into those calls prepared, I know you've had experiences in
Yeah.
the past where you've had rough ones where you're really put through the ringer. Everything from how much do you currently make, right? Why do you think you should get this? Well, we don't ever go beyond this. It's not our policy. Like, you've had it all. Like, how have you navigated
Yeah, in
that?
the year of our Lord 2024, I was asked what I make currently when being asked what I wanted. It was wow, I did not expect that. So
You got frazzled.
frazzled is an understatement. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it was insane. I was basically offered the job and then it was lower than what I wanted. So I told them, no, sorry, I'd like to negotiate that further. I would like so and so amount. And I was met with, according to our policies, you have to start at the lower part of the band, at the first step of the band. And we cannot start you higher than that. Now, when someone hits you with a policy, how do you even say it? So, I mean, to me, also that sounded like an excuse because there's no way that so many people in your organization and institution have all started at the lower part of the band. But with that knowledge, I was able to say that. But if you don't know that, that's obviously like, oh, she just threw a policy at me. How can I possibly break it? So basically, I said, I respect that this is your policy. However, I'm sure that you have some exceptions and some leeways and flexibility with said policy. And I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that I meet the minimum requirements and actually exceed them in all fronts of this application. And so I have more education than you're looking for. I have all the skill sets you're looking for. And as such, I definitely would like to get more than just the starting part of this band. And I threw in some, making her feel good. I was like, I would really appreciate you advocate for me here. I'd be so thankful for it. You got to really butter them up, make them feel good. Got past that. And then I was asked, if you don't mind me asking, how much are you making right now? So, and
You thought you
I know,
won.
and that was levied with, or that was like paired with in a question of like, a comment on, like, why would you want it? So I reiterated my points and I didn't answer about what I was making. I got asked a second time. So she definitely wanted a response. And mind you, I was making less at that time in my current job. I was making less than what I was being offered by that person. And from my understanding of this market, I was like, okay, my current position definitely is not making more than what she's offering because that's not realistic. There's no way I'm telling her
Those are the micro decisions you're making second by
this
second.
was like on a call live. I was just like, I need to be realistic. I'm not going to pull out a random number that doesn't sound realistic. So I told...
You're thinking, oh, should I say the truth? Should I lie?
you guys don't. I was frazzled. And so what I did is I inflated the amount that I was currently making to a part that was, understandably accurate. Like, they wouldn't question, they'd be like, oh, that's a little high for that role. But they wouldn't be like, okay, there's no way she's making that much. But it was still lower. Even after inflating, I was seeing a number that was lower than what I was being offered. So what I said was like, I'm currently making so-and-so amount, recently got a promotion in this role. However, considering the job that I'm applying to is a more senior position, I'm expecting that I get at least a 10 to 15K increase in salary. And so the amount that you're offering does not fit within those requirements for me in this role. Again, as I mentioned, I meet so-and-so requirement. I exceed your requirements for this, and I'd appreciate you advocating for me. You guys, I was sweating. I was so nervous on this call. And she was like, okay, well, I'll have to go back and think about it. I need to discuss with somebody else, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, sure, do that. I don't mind. Like, I'll happily wait a few days to hear back from you.
Meanwhile, you're
I was going through the ringer. But yeah, that's kind of how I dealt with it. It threw my script out the window. I did not have a script for this scenario at all. But
and didn't you, when you told us about it, you're like, should I just tell them that never mind? Like, you're like second guessing what you said. And
because I'm like, did I just like screw myself over by saying that I make less than what they're offering me and all this type of stuff? Oh, it was an ordeal, you guys. But yeah, it was.
Yeah.
That was a fun experience.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. Gordon, we get it. Don't accept the first offer and try to increase the size of your bag. Tell us how to do it. All right, let's get into some examples and stories of how things tend to play out in these negotiations.
That's to say the least. So the key takeaway message is be prepared for the salary conversation and workshop it with a friend, maybe someone who has experience navigating these things. Don't assume that you'll be equipped to handle everything that's thrown at you, especially if you're in a position where like the negotiation becomes even more important after you have some job security. Yes, I would say, right? Like obviously if you haven't worked in a while and you want to get started really quickly, maybe that's not as much in your priority to make like $1 more or $2 more, even though it's substantial per hour. For people who are intentionally now in a position to make different career moves, we need to make sure we do a good job making sure we get compensated fairly in line with what is expected for us in these different positions. So I would say in those scenarios, negotiating is incredibly important, especially if you meet sort of everything that's in the posting and exceed a lot of those things. So just like what Purva said, the framing around it is salary adjustment. Don't say that. That's kind of the technical terminology that we use. You're requesting the salary adjustment through a negotiation process. You want to look back at the job posting, look at qualifications and skills, whether it's verbally or in an email. You want to kind of list it out. Yeah, masters have that. 3 years experience running a community health center. Have that. And by the way, these are the 3 things that are not in the job posting that I have that offer additional value to your organization. Therefore, this is what I'm requesting.
You have to have valid support for your negotiation. If it's valid just support. I want more money, it's not going to cut it, to be fully honest.
Right. So stay strong with it. If it's important to you to push for making a bit more than what you're offered, stick through it. I've had a situation too where I've got to the walk away stage.
Wow.
Right. Yep. And it happened. It worked out.
How long did that negotiation start for you to consider walking away?
Well, the walk away was like, this is my final number. Not sort of like, you're annoying me, bye. It was sort of like, this is my final number and I'm not able to accept lower than this. Yeah. And that's because I had job security already, right? And I would be shooting myself in the foot, so to speak, by taking what the quote unquote final offer was on their end. So we went to actually 3 rounds of negotiation on that. And the final time we got to where it needed to get to. Again, I wasn't stressed about it. It was very firm about it, very strategic about it. You don't want to respond right away. You don't want to accept things right away, but you still need to be professional and respectful. And it can be a long process. I think it took weeks, 2-3 weeks maybe, to like sort everything out.
They really wanted you, Gordon.
So that's the other thing. Like if you're being interviewed and you were interviewed and you're the final candidate, they want you. They don't really want to pick their number 2 person over $5,000, like unless it's really a budget crunch for their budgeting. So if it's in the range, you can get it. I would encourage that you push twice. A third time is a bit risky, right? So you could push up to 2 times. Read the room if it's firm. Still don't accept it. Let them sweat it out. So even if, no, I'm sorry, we can't go higher. No, this is something I really have to seriously consider and have a discussion with my family about this. So I'll get, is it okay if I get back to you in the next 24, 48 hours? They might just come back without you coming back to them and say, actually, we worked it out. We're going to give you what you wanted. So you always have to let them sweat it out for a bit. Not too long, 24 hours, 48 hours. And then try to see if you can get what you need.
Yeah.
Right, Purva?
Yeah.
In the end, you're going to be happy. You know, if you have a good friend that helps you out with things, you can offer to bring them to dinner to celebrate. Right? There's different things that you could do to celebrate with your friends who helped you.
Yeah, Gordon, when are you finally coming to the city so I can take you out for dinner?
Are you alluding to the fact that I might have given you some support on something?
We are so supportive at PHI.
Up until now, we've been referring to salary as the money that you earn, but many job postings refer to what is called a total compensation package, which goes beyond to include even vacation time, health benefits like physiotherapy, prescription drug coverage, dental coverage, as well as vacation and other perks. It begs the question, can those components be negotiated too?
And you also want to factor in specific things like overall compensation package. So is it in lieu of benefits and vacation, etc., or is that included in the compensation? Those types of things are important to factor in because those are directly kind of tied into the value you feel like you're getting out of working.
That is also up for negotiations, not just the salary.
Yeah. If you're at an impasse, you could say, at least, could we have a chat about days off? And maybe they're going to give you something informal off the books, or maybe they'll actually write it into your contract for an extra week of vacation. Hey, why not?
Yeah.
All right, folks.
All right.
Long story short, try to get your money. You deserve it.
Get that bag. Get that dough.
Right? Get that bag. The companies that we're working for, most of the times, can go a little bit higher than what they're saying. So if you meet those skills and qualifications and you're confident about it, get the bag.
Advocate for yourself.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to go and look at my grass now. See if my grass seed is growing. Money's greener on the other side.
It is. It is indeed.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
This show was edited by me, Gordon Thane, with additional editing from LaShawn Benedict. Sound design and mixing by myself and LaShawn Benedict. The original music from The Music Room, composed by Tom Fox, licensed from Johnny Harris. The cover art design for our show by LaShawn Benedict. The Public Health Insight Podcast is produced by PHI Media. Thank you for listening to the Public Health Insight Podcast, your go-to space for informative conversations, inspiring community action. If you enjoy our podcast, be sure to subscribe and leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. See you in the next one.